I can't believe I'm here serving these annoying perverts. Today had started off as normal as they come. I woke up, brushed my teeth, and then decided to go out and grab some coffee and breakfast before heading into work. Everything went downhill, though, after I arrived at the cafe near my work. It was a place that opened up last year and was quite popular called Swapping. I'd been there dozens of times, as they truly serve the best coffee and most delicious food. After arriving, I take a small booth towards the back and proceed to look over the menu while I wait for someone to come take my order. Once the one nearby finished clearing a table, she walked over to me and pulled out her notepad. I looked up at her and was in awe of her beauty. She had short blonde hair, which radiated like the sun, and bright blue eyes that looked like the vast, endless ocean. The rest of her was also quite amazing, from her smallest chest to her round backside. I don't think anyone could keep themselves from staring at her, but I wasn't there to stare like a creep at this woman, so I ordered an espresso along with a sausage, egg, and cheese croissant. She wrote it all down and winked at me as she told me it would be out soon. I then got to watch her walk away, and as shameless as it is, I found myself staring again, at least until she went into the back. A few minutes later, she came back and started brewing my drink. I shrug, having had my fill of staring, and pull out my laptop to start working remotely. A minute after that, she came back with my drink. I thanked her as she placed it next to me, then turned my attention back to the project I was working on. It was annoying, but I was trying my best to resolve some issues my coworkers pointed out to me. When the waitress returned to bring my sandwich, I went up to reach for it, as I had my laptop in the way where it would be placed, but my clumsy butt ended up knocking my cup off the side of the table. It smashed to the ground, and I immediately apologized. She told me it was okay, placed the food down, and went over to grab some cleaning supplies, like a broom and dustpan for the cup and a mop for the liquid. I sat there feeling ashamed and embarrassed as she bent down to pick up the bigger pieces of the cup. As she did, the guy in the booth next to me looked over and smiled. He then suddenly stood up and slapped her on the backside as hard as he could. The sound was so loud that it echoed throughout the cafe. I was in shock to see that, and the guy who did it quickly turned around and acted like he had no idea what was going on. She jumped up and turned around to face me. Her face was red, and it was clear she was angry. She slapped me across the face and started calling me a nasty pervert among many other things. It was clear that she thought it was me who did it, and I tried to explain it wasn't, but she didn't care. Before I knew it, she suddenly grabbed me and pulled me into the kitchen. She then shoved me into the employee bathroom and locked the door. I pressed my back against one of the walls and put my hands up, once again trying to convince her it wasn't me, but she wasn't hearing it. She told me that she was sick of perverts like me, always gawking at her, always trying to touch her. It was awful, and for once she wanted to teach one of them a lesson. She then slipped her hand into her bra and pulled out some gold-looking medallion. She then threw it at me, and in a panic I reached out to catch it, and when I did, I passed out. When I came to, I was looking up at my own body, who was smiling as he looked down at me. He then turned around and started flexing in the mirror. He said something about this body being quite nice. I stood up and asked him what was going on, and that's when I saw myself in the background of the mirror, except I wasn't myself, I was the waitress. He picked up the medallion and slipped it into my pocket. Well, it was his pocket now. He then started giving me instructions. For the rest of his shift, I'd be in this body, meaning I had to go out there and wait on tables and serve customers coffee and food and all that. He also said I'd get to see what it's like to deal with men like myself. He said he was going to go enjoy a day off, and would return once the shift was over to use the medallion to swap us back to normal. Before I could protest, he left, leaving me standing there inside this body, which felt so incredibly different than my own. It was so weird having breasts, and her butt was much plumper than my extremely flat one. I honestly had no idea how she dealt with having either. With no other choice, I left the bathroom and was met with some dirty looks from the cooks in the kitchen, so they must know that I wasn't who I appeared to be. Over the next few hours, I focused on learning the menu. Luckily, none of the customers seemed to mind how clueless I was, but perhaps that was because of something about me, or because this body was distracting them. I guess I just came off as some blonde bimbo who just got hired. It didn't take long into the shift for me to realize how bad the waitress had it. I had people looking at me everywhere but my eyes as I took their order, and there was a lot more staring at me as I walked around. I tried to ignore it, as this wasn't my body, and I'd soon be out of it. But I hated the way that it made me feel. It was like I was some sort of object and not a person. After only an hour of it, I never wanted to feel this way again. 8 hours passed, and I was close to the end of my shift when an older man with a cane walked in. He asked me politely to help him sit down in a booth, and I was completely naive and believed he truly needed help, so I helped him. As I did, he suddenly pulled himself close to me and got a feel of something he shouldn't have. I was frustrated, but decided to say it was a simple mistake. After he was settled in the booth, I took his order, a regular coffee with cream and no sugar. I head off, make his coffee, and return to place it on the table. As I did, he reached his hands up and knocked it out of my hands. It fell to the ground and shattered apart, mimicking my morning incident. Right then and there, I should have known something was up, but I was on autopilot at that point. I apologized to the man and told him how sorry I was. I then went to grab the cleaning supplies to clean it up. Then, the moment I bent down to pick up the larger pieces, my backside was met with 2 hands. I gasped and froze in place, as I had no idea what to do, as this sort of thing had never happened to me before. The old man whispered something perverted about my butt and then let go as he started laughing. I stood up and started crying, and thanks to how loud the old man was laughing, one of the cooks from the back came out to see what was going on. He took one look at me, then one look at the old man. The cook groaned and walked over to us. He gently moved me to the side, picked up the old man's cane, and then ripped him out of the booth and shoved him out of the store. Then, as an added insult, he broke the cane in two over his knee and tossed it at the man. He then came back to me and pulled me in close and held me while I continued crying. It was so awful. I was terrified when it happened, and I felt so helpless and weak. It was violating and demeaning, and no one should ever have to feel that way. It all suddenly made sense why the waitress was fed up with it, and honestly I respect the courage he had to do something about it. To spend every day like this sounded like a nightmare, and he truly deserved the break he was getting. Not long after that, my shift ended, and I sat back just thinking about things when my body suddenly walked in looking quite happy, at least until he saw how upset I was. He sat down next to me, and we had a long, nice chat. I told him about what happened, and he seemed to know the old man well. He then apologized to me, saying he didn't think he'd show up again. The waitress then apologized again to me, saying that after he left, he checked the cameras and saw that it was someone else who smacked him. He just really needed a break from it all, and decided that it couldn't hurt to just have fun and come back and make it up to me afterward. I honestly couldn't be mad at him. The whole thing, while scary, gave me a valuable new perspective. Even better than that, the waitress asked me to join him at his house. He'd make me dinner, we could chat some more, and then we could swap back to normal. I happily agreed, as he seemed like a really good person, and after spending the day in this body, I couldn't help but feel a special connection with him. Here I am once again at Swappuccino, the cafe I like to frequent, which is the one where I swap bodies with the waitress who worked here. Most people would probably avoid coming back here after that, but not me. In fact, I'm not even here to eat or get coffee. I'm here to work, and I'm doing it using the same body I used during my very first shift here. The strangest part about all of that is being here and being in this body was my choice. It all started the night I went home with the waitress, or, as I know her now, Lizzie. Once we arrived, we hung out, ordered some pizza, and had a few drinks together, and honestly, it was an amazing night, one I cherish. When the next morning came around, Lizzie used the medallion to swap us back. I was a bit relieved to be back in my body, but it did feel a bit strange. After swapping back, the two of us exchanged numbers, agreeing it would be awesome to hang out again sometime. A few days passed after that, and we'd send each other a couple of messages or talk on the phone before bed, slowly getting to know each other more. After a month, we made things official and started dating each other, and our relationship was great. After 2 months of dating, Lizzie came to me looking a bit nervous. She told me that she had a request, but understood if I said no. That sounded strange, but it was important to her, so I heard her out. That's when she started telling me about a concert she wanted to go to. The issue with that, though, was her job. One of our coworkers just up and disappeared, likely just quitting without notice. However, that meant someone had to cover those extra shifts, and since Lizzie was the senior waitress, that's been thrown on her shoulders. Until they replaced that coworker, she was stuck working double shifts 4 out of 7 days a week, which left her no time for having fun or this concert that she's been planning to go to with her friends for months. Lizzie then pulled out the swapping medallion, the one she tossed at me back at Swappuccino. She then pulled out her saddest puppy dog eyes as she asked me if I would mind swapping with her just for 1 day so she could go. I was helpless to resist her innocent pleading face, not to mention I just loved seeing her happy, so while I was hesitant, I agreed to do it. She got super happy and hugged me, then promised something special afterward. I did ask her what I was supposed to do if something like the incident with the old man happened again, and Lizzie told me not to worry. They recently knocked down the wall between the front and back of the shop, so now you could see right into the kitchen. That meant the cooks could see what was going on in the dining area, so if at any time someone tried to do something, one of them would know right away and come storming to my rescue. That was actually really reassuring. Not only because I don't want to experience that again, but also because it meant that people were less likely to try it on her while she was working. So some time passed, and the day of the concert came about, and Lizzie was about to head to her morning shift before we swapped. I decided to give her a nice treat and told her I'd take over both her shifts today, and that she could truly relax. I do have to admit, I had other motives. As an employee, she's allowed a free meal and all the coffee she wants while working. I've been craving some of the things on the menu, and getting to sip on some delicious coffee all day sounded like a dream. She thanked me, and once again mentioned having something special for me afterwards, and then pulled out the medallion. She tossed it to me, and I caught it. Like last time, we swapped bodies, but unlike last time, I didn't pass out, which was nice. I said bye to Lizzie as he was messing around with my body and went off to Swappuccino. My experience as Lizzie and working there was vastly different from the first. I didn't mess up a single order, the customers were super nice, and I came home with a big haul of tips. $300 from the morning shift and $500 from the dinner shift. Of course, those tips came at the cost of being sore and tired, which was weird with all the coffee I drank, but Lizzie's body had to be used to drinking that much, unlike mine. If I had been in my body, I probably wouldn't sleep for a week. After the second shift ended, I made my way back to Lizzie's house. It didn't occur to me to ask how long the concert would be. He wasn't back yet, and well, I was sort of a mess, as while I didn't mess up any orders, I did spill on myself while making things, not to mention I was sweaty. I hate being dirty and sticky, and I couldn't wait around for him to get back to swap us. It was possible it would be hours before he got home. With little other options, I went and took a shower, which made me extremely aware of the body I was in. I cleaned myself, and even though the two of us had showered together a dozen times, I couldn't open my eyes. Something about it felt wrong, maybe because Lizzie wasn't here, or because this wasn't my body. After showering, I cover my body and hair in a towel, then leave the bathroom with my dirty uniform and toss it in the laundry hamper. I took a seat on the bed and watched television for a couple of hours before Lizzie came walking in. When he saw me on the bed, he jumped right up next to me and kissed me on the lips. Once he was finished, he teased me for being embarrassed. He then said that he had no idea his body was so cute when embarrassed. I tried to play it off as nothing, but the truth is that it sort of felt good to be kissed like that, better than when we were in our normal bodies. I also didn't mind being called cute, even though he was basically complimenting himself. He got off the bed after that and made a joke about loving me in just a towel, but right now I had to get dressed. He walked over to his closet, picked out a dress, and tossed it to me. I was confused and asked him why I had to do that if we were just going to swap back. He smiled and shrugged before walking out of the room. I sighed and put on the dress, which was a pretty tight, long yellow strapless dress that did look good on Lizzie's body. After that, I left the bedroom and met him in the kitchen. I arrived to find him pulling out pans and starting to cook. I asked him how the concert was, and he had a sparkle in his eyes as he told me all about it. He even thanked me a dozen times for letting him go to it. It was a rare treat for him, and I'm glad he got to go, even if it was in my body. After telling me about the concert, he asked me about the cafe. I told him I had a great day, then I showed off my tips, which surprised him. He said if I were that good, I should take more of his shifts. I joked back and said that for free coffee in this body, I'd do it all again. He suddenly turned toward me and gave me a strange look, and then out of the blue he asked me if I liked being in his body. For some reason, I didn't even think about it and just said yes. I then turned bright red as I realized what I had just said. He joked again and told me not to get too comfortable in it, but then he said it was good that I was okay being in it, as he had a few things he wanted to try out while we were swapped. I was a little confused at first, as I didn't believe that meant what I thought it meant. Then he winked at me and continued cooking. As we ate, that was all I could think about. Did he really want to do that while swapped? Did I? After dinner, he sent me to the bedroom while he cleaned up. I sat on the bed, my heart racing as I pictured what we were about to do. Lizzie came in and immediately started kissing me, and we started to make our way towards his bed. Once I was on my back, and he was laying on top of me, he looked me in the eyes and asked me if I was really ready for this. I went silent for a moment, but nodded. He was happy to hear it, and that was when things took off. The experience was out of this world. I felt so small, yet so safe in my own big arms. After we were both satisfied, he pulled me in closely, and we fell asleep cuddling. That was the start of it all, as over the next couple months, we would swap 2 to 3 times a week. Sometimes it was just for helping Lizzie with work, sometimes it was so she could see how she looked in outfits. Then there were the moments when we used it to simply have fun. After nearly 8 months of dating and agreeing to become more serious, the two of us moved in together, which only made it easier for us to swap with each other more often. One night, we decided to try going to a club while swapped, which was amazing. We had fun dancing and drinking, and I enjoyed all the attention I was getting. When the night ended, we got into a cab and went home, where Lizzie went to go grab the medallion to swap us back. I was waiting in front of the mirror while posing in a dress that I had on when he came back. He was about to toss it to me when he suddenly tripped on the carpet. The medallion flew out of his hands, and I tried to catch it, but it hit the wall and smashed into tiny little pieces. I stood there in total disbelief while Lizzie sat up and looked towards the wall in shock. After a few seconds, we both began to panic. We gathered all the pieces and tried to swap back, but it didn't work, and without it, we were stuck in each other's bodies. I started crying, and Lizzie held me, saying it would be okay. He then told me it was his grandma who gave him the medallion, so there was a good chance she knew how to fix it or make another one. So, I was stuck in this body until we got the time to go visit his grandmother. It's been about 1 month since my girlfriend and I swapped bodies and accidentally broke the medallion we used to do that. At first, I was freaked out and crying a lot, but Lizzie managed to calm me down and convince me everything would be alright. He told me about how he got the medallion. Apparently, his grandmother gave it to him when he moved out on his own. Why she gave it to him, he had no idea. All he knew was what it could do, and the first time he used it was on me. Knowing where it came from gave us some hope to be able to swap back. We just needed to ask his grandmother how to fix it or get another one, if either of those things were possible. We just had one obstacle in our way. His grandmother lived across the country, so we couldn't just take a day off and go see her. We had to request time off where we worked, then buy the plane tickets, and rent a hotel room near where his grandmother lived. Due to circumstances, that trip ended up being a month away, so in the meantime, I had to work overtime. I spent every day working at Swappuccino as Lizzie, and during the night, I did my job from home inside my office. That much work was exhausting. Most days I was face planting into a fully cooked meal or into my keyboard, all while Lizzie did his best to cover doing the chores and being around when my boss needed to see my face. I know he felt really bad watching me work so hard, but I didn't mind, especially since he did his best to keep me happy. He'd make me food, get me flowers, and even massage my back and let me take a quick nap in his arms. I was managing it all well, at least up until the last week. For some reason, my chest was starting to feel sore and tender. Wearing bras was uncomfortable, I was more moody than normal, and I was feeling bloated. Worse than anything, I was feeling more exhausted than ever. Lizzie thought it was that time of the month and started giving me a bunch of things to use like pads and tampons, which freaked me out, but I used them as instructed. So I suffered a bit more over the week before finally getting a much needed break. Lizzie drove us to the airport while I caught up on some sleep. We got on the plane where I suddenly felt sick to my stomach. I threw up in the restroom and then told Lizzie about it, who seemed concerned but wouldn't tell me why. I didn't push it as I was still tired, so I took another nap as we went across the country, only waking up to vomit again or use the restroom. When we landed, Lizzie woke me up, grabbed both our bags, and walked behind me as he watched me like a hawk. We rented a car from the airport, after which Lizzie drove us to the hotel room and we checked in. Then we got changed and went out to dinner together, mostly because I kept complaining that I was hungry. For some reason, I couldn't decide on what to order, as everything sounded great, and to my surprise, Lizzie told me to order a bunch of stuff. I thought he was joking, and told him I didn't want to make his body fat, which made him laugh nervously. He said something about not worrying about it, and then told me to order a bunch of stuff and we could share it. Not wanting to waste that opportunity, I ordered a ton of different food and desserts, most of which I ate myself. After eating, we paid for our quite large bill and went off to Lizzie's grandmother's house. As soon as she answered the door, she looked at me, then at Lizzie. She then put her hand on her head and looked at Lizzie, and then she asked him what he did. We were both a bit shocked that she knew right away that we were swapped, but it made a bit of sense as she clearly knew more about this magical stuff than us. She swatted Lizzie on the head, calling him an idiot, and then took me by the hands and pulled me inside. She sat me down and then went to make tea. Lizzie pulled up a chair and sat down next to me, and when his grandmother came back with the tea, we started explaining why we were here. After we were done, Lizzie got smacked in the head again. His grandmother said he was a good-for-nothing grandchild, only coming to visit when he needed something, to which Lizzie apologized and promised to come over some more. That seemed to make her quite happy, and she agreed to help us. She asked us for the pieces of the medallion, and we pulled them out. His grandmother looked at him and swatted him on the head again, calling him a careless fool and telling him that magical objects weren't easy to make and shouldn't be used as toys. She then said that she'd check her spellbook and see if it could be fixed. I was happy to hear that, and I felt confident I'd soon be back in my own body again, and with it, I'd be back to working only one job. Lizzie, on the other hand, didn't seem all that confident, or perhaps something else was wrong. We chatted for a bit and drank some tea. I threw up and got a craving, and Lizzie ordered us a pizza, and after a half hour, his grandmother came back holding the spellbook she mentioned, which was quite huge and old. I was amazed. It had thousands of pages in it, and she was flipping through it like she knew exactly where she wanted to be. I'd never remember where everything is in a book that size. She took the pieces of the medallion and held them tightly in her hand. She covered one hand with the other and began to recite some sort of magical incantation from her book. At this point, I already knew magic existed thanks to the medallion, but this was still amazing to see. Light shined out of the tiny gaps between her hands as she continued reciting the incantation, ending with a burst of light that made me close my eyes. After rubbing them and regaining my vision, I saw the medallion in her hand completely intact. She placed it down on the table and told Lizzie to be careful with it this time. Lizzie promised to be more careful with it this time around, then asked me to get up so we could use it right away and return to our bodies. I jumped up as I was more than excited to finally get back to my original body. He gently tossed the coin to me and I caught it without any trouble, but nothing happened. I looked at his grandmother and asked her what happened, and that's when I heard Lizzie say, "Oh no." Before I knew it, Lizzie's grandmother was hitting him on the head again, calling him an idiot over and over again. I asked what was going on, as I seemed to be the only one in the dark. I asked if the magic hadn't returned to it or something. Lizzie's grandmother told him to tell me, which made me even more worried. Lizzie asked for some privacy, and then I watched as his grandmother left the room, though she stayed right outside within earshot to eavesdrop, so there was really no point in that. Lizzie then mumbled to himself as he paced back and forth, repeatedly telling himself to just say it. He then took a deep breath and looked me dead in the eyes. He then asked me if I remembered the fun nights we had together, the really intimate ones. I nodded and tell him I did, as they were some of the best nights since we've been stuck like this. Lizzie then told me that he had some good news and some bad news. He told me that the medallion was working perfectly, but there was something preventing us from swapping back. He then looked away and started to rub the back of his neck. He mumbled something very quickly, which annoyed me, so I asked him to repeat himself and to do it slower, which is when he told me the medallion doesn't allow someone bearing children to swap. I gasped, stood up, slammed my hands on the table, and yelled at him as I asked him if he was telling me I was pregnant. Lizzie gulped and slowly nodded his head, and then told me that I had to be and that he'd suspected as much for a few days now. I sat back down and started crying. I realized I was going to be stuck like this for at least 7 or more months. Lizzie came over to me, bent down, and hugged me, telling me that everything would be alright. He then got me thinking about happy things, like how we were going to have a baby, and how I was going to get to pick a name and all that for them. It was surreal, and while not ideal, I was sort of excited to finally have a child. And I couldn't ask for anyone better than Lizzie to have one with. Of course, now I have to grow a baby inside me, carrying it around as it makes me fat, sad, and nearly immobile. But in the end of it all, I'd swap back to my body and get to be the best father ever. The idea of that makes me truly happy and excited, so maybe this will be all worth it in the end. It's been a little over 10 months since Lizzie and I swapped bodies and broke the medallion that we used to do it. Trying to find a way to fix it, or a new way to swap us so we could go back to our normal bodies, we decided to visit Lizzie's grandmother. We got a lot of good news during that trip and some slight bit of bad news. Lizzie's grandmother was able to fix the medallion we broke, but when we tried to use it, it didn't work, and we were still in each other's body. The medallion didn't work because it was protecting something I was carrying inside me. That's the good news, perhaps the greatest news, and the craziest. Lizzie and I were expecting, and due to that, the medallion wouldn't let us swap back. Lizzie's grandmother said if it were allowed, its magic could swap all 3 of us, which would be really bad. Of course, as wonderful as it is to know I was going to be a parent, I was shocked and scared to be the one carrying our child until it was born and we could swap back. As someone born a man, I never in my life imagined I'd be doing such a thing, but my life has been anything but ordinary since I met and started dating Lizzie. In the end, everything turned out alright, and carrying our child was one of the best things I'd ever done. It came with its ups and downs. It wasn't great having limited mobility at a certain point. I wasn't able to bend down much or get up on my own. I threw up a lot and only ended up throwing up more while trying to clean it, which made me stop and start crying. I would then feel worse watching poor Lizzie clean it up for me instead. I had a lot of stomach aches, and parts of my body would randomly swell, like my ankles. I had mood swings where I was extremely sad or extremely angry. I definitely gave Lizzie a hard time, but he played his part perfectly. He always had the perfect way to combat my many forms, and he did so without ever complaining once. I know I wouldn't have made it through this without him, and I'm not even sure I could have done his part as well as he did. Enough of the bad stuff, let me tell you about the good stuff. I got to eat so much food. Lizzie was always finding me new amazing snacks and meals to try, and he made sure the house was never without my favorite things. I did eat a lot of things that, when I think about them now, were totally disgusting, but at the same time, I remember them being the best thing I've ever tried. For example, I took some leftover pizza and covered it in relish and barbecue sauce and ate it. Other than food, I got to feel the little one kicking from inside me, which, like this whole thing, was a bit strange when you used to be a guy and the kicks were coming from within you. I also got my own baby shower, where I got to be the center of attention and everyone was super nice to me. They got us a ton of cute clothes for our baby, which I love so much. We put them all in the nursery we set up, that Lizzie set up. Everything we needed was inside. Tons of baby products, shelves, toys, a cradle, and a changing table perfectly at my height. To decorate it, we painted the walls pink with yellow flowers. Well, again, Lizzie did that while I cheered him on and ate snacks. As for why we did pink, I think that's obvious. It's because we had a beautiful girl who we named Emily after her great-grandmother. It did take us a while to settle on that name, as I really liked Mira and Lizzie liked Jenna, but then one day out of the blue, we both suggested naming her Emily in honor of her great-grandmother, who was the reason we were even a family. I suppose I should tell you about my time living as Lizzie, since I've been doing it for so long now. Honestly, it's been a blast being a woman. Sure, there are a lot of very gross, annoying men who treat me like I'm stupid or useless just because I'm a woman, but I've learned to deal with them. I've also come to enjoy wearing Lizzie's pretty clothes, though there was a bit of time I couldn't enjoy them due to the changes happening to my body, and there are still a few that still don't fit right. But I've slowly been getting new ones and working on my hair and makeup more often. Both things I've gotten really good at, as Lizzie tells me all the time, that I'm super beautiful and that I do both of them better than he ever did. He even makes jokes about how good I am at being a woman and that it was fate that we met and swapped. I honestly believe that's the case, as now I feel more at home in this body than I ever did in my original. Lizzie even feels the same, saying my old body was much more to his liking. He apparently didn't like being a woman, which is why he always had short hair. He didn't like cleaning it and brushing it. I, on the other hand, take great care of my hair, and I've grown it out so I can style it in more ways. I was a little worried Lizzie wouldn't like me growing it out, but he didn't care since it wasn't his body at the time. Plus, he thought it made me look cuter. Of course, when I'm working, I just throw it up in a ponytail and leave my bangs loose in the front, which still looks cute but keeps it from getting in the way. My most loyal customers also find it cute and like that I've grown my hair out, so I get a ton of compliments from them, which is nice. Speaking of work, I still work at Swappuccino, and I even got promoted to manager, as the previous one moved away and the rest of the crew nominated me to take the position, and since it's more business than serving, I'm actually really good at it. It also came with a pay raise, which really helps since we had hospital bills and a child to care for now. Lizzie's been doing great as well when it comes to work. It turns out he had a knack for designing clothing. It started with him making baby clothes, then he even made me some super cute clothes, and before I knew it, he was doodling all the time. It took a bit of convincing, but I managed to get him to take his designs to the bank, get a loan, and start a shop selling the things he makes. Now he makes a ton of money, more than me at my current job and the job I had back when I was a guy. And even if I stopped working, we'd still be doing great financially, which is good, as we have something coming up that'll be quite costly. The date is set for about 2 years from now. That's right, Lizzie and I are getting married. We got engaged last week. We went out to dinner at a nice fancy restaurant. It was the kind of place with lit candles on the table and a pianist playing live music in the background. If Lizzie wasn't there with me, I'd have felt completely out of place, but he was there, and he made me feel so special. We had an amazing dinner together. We talked, we laughed, and we held each other's hand for a bit as we looked into each other's eyes. Then, randomly, he said he dropped something and then knelt down to the floor. I looked away for a second, but when I looked back, he was kneeling in front of me, with a smile on his face and a small box with a beautiful ring inside of it in his hands. I put my hands over my mouth to keep myself from screaming with joy as he asked me to marry him. I didn't say no. There was no way I possibly could. I love Lizzie, and I love him with all my heart, no matter what bodies we're in. No, I know I've never been as close to anyone as I am to him. I mean, we're literally in each other's old bodies now. So in the weeks since, we've started planning our wedding, and we're planning a really big one. We're inviting all the workers from Swappuccino, since most of them have been our friends since before the swap, along with all the people who work for Lizzie, helping him make the clothing from the designs he comes up with, and we're inviting our families. Luckily, we chose to have the wedding in 2 years. That way Emily will have grown a bit, and she can either stay with the sitter or even be part of our wedding as the flower girl, which I'm really hoping she'll want to do. I can't wait for that day. I'll be wearing an amazing wedding dress, one Lizzie is currently designing and plans to make by hand himself. I'll get to walk down the aisle and say I do to the man I love the most. Truly, it'll be one of the most special days of my life. Oh yeah, we can totally turn back again. We've been able to do so for quite a while now, but neither one of us have mentioned doing so. We didn't have an official conversation about it, but since we both prefer this, there's no real point in swapping again. Ever since I met Lizzie here at Swappuccino, my life has gotten better, more enjoyable, and more fulfilling. I met the love of my life, who's an amazing partner. We started a family, and I have the most adorable child. And honestly, I have a body I feel really comfortable in. What else could a person want other than all of that? For me, this is everything I ever needed and all I ever dreamed of, and I'll love and cherish it for as long as I can. Huh? Oh right, sorry, you have no idea what I'm talking about. I sort of spaced out and was thinking out loud. I do that sometimes. I didn't mean to tell you my life story. Let me start over. Welcome to Swappuccino. I'm your super cute server, Lizzie. Now, what can I get for you today? Hey everyone, Riley here. I hope you liked that story. If you did, please consider leaving a like. It would mean a lot to me. You could also check out my Patreon page, where I release written versions of all my stories. It also helps support my work. The link should be in the description, or somewhere. Oh gosh, I sure hope it didn't leave again.